Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our alumni panel for online programs. We have two fabulous alumni who have joined us here tonight. I am Tori Giffen, the Assistant Director of Online Programs. We also have Brianna Davis, who is our online student advisor, who is here just hanging out with us. So if you have questions, Brianna and I both can answer them from the college. If you have specific programs at your college, or we can follow up with you later. But main reason that we're here is to hear from two of our alumni from different programs that we have here at the college. And while we are getting started, I have a quick poll just to let us know a little bit about where people are coming from. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, and you can type questions in the chat as we're going throughout here. If you have questions for either of our panelists, I have about 3 questions, and then do a little bit of a pause for a break for questions for any of you in the audience to ask. We have a small enough group here tonight. You can either unmute yourself and come on and ask your question, or you can go ahead and type that in the chat, and I will be happy to read that question off for you. Give both of our panelists an opportunity to answer that, unless it's like a specific question only to like one of them, and then move on to the next question. And then we have a second portion. I'll have 2 more questions, and then we'll kind of do the same thing. So the first half will be focusing more on their student experience, the experience in their classes and the programs that they're in, getting some input from them, and then questions for them on their careers, in case you have questions like that and would like to know what our alumni are doing. So with that, Erin, would you please briefly introduce yourself to folks?
Sure. Well, good evening, everyone. Good morning, wherever you are coming from. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Gayheimer, and I am a May 2024 alumni of UIUC, so that feels good to say. I graduated, like I said, in May, defended my dissertation back in March, and I was in the global studies concentration. So that was really great because I work in international education for the old day job. And yeah, I did most of my program from Dayton, Ohio. That's where I was working in international education before and education abroad. I'm currently in Indianapolis, Indiana, so pretty close. So I've gotten a chance to go over to UIUC several times. So I currently work at Indiana University now on what I call kind of the other side of the house of international education. So instead of outbound students, I'm now bringing students in. So working in international student recruitment, actually. So pretty cool and different from what I was doing before. So nice to meet everybody.
Thanks, Erin. And then Sean, would you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sean Harkness. I did my undergrad at Illinois, graduated in 2014. I'm a high school teacher, social studies, and I went into the master's in education policy, organization, and leadership program back in the fall of 2021 and graduated in winter 2023 with my master's in EPOL, and then my focus was diversity and equity. So I teach high school social studies in Chicago, in the Chicago Public Schools at Lane Tech High School, AP Human Geography, where I'm able to put a lot of the things I learned in this class into practice, which is great.
That's great. So yeah, so we have 2 wonderful alumni here, 1 doctoral program from the master's program. 2 of our programs and departments are represented here tonight. So if you have questions about EPOL, they both can probably answer a lot of those questions for everybody tonight. So thanks again for joining us, and thanks for those brief introductions. And thanks again for all of you who are just joining us. We're just getting started. Just done some brief introductions. If you think that you have missed something, you can go ahead and ask the question again, or feel free to ask the question in the chat. And we can get those answered. Just a quick reminder, while you're not speaking or not asking questions, if you could just keep muted so that there isn't the feedback for everybody. And then this is being recorded so that folks who are watching this back later have a way to participate. So with that, first set of questions that I have, and we'll go Aaron and then Sean this time, and then for round two, we'll go reverse. Aaron, what were you doing before you started your program?
Yeah, so I started the program, I should say, in August 2019, the before times, if you will. And so that's when I always joke that as a student who was going into an online program, like it was the time when Zoom was still cool, or wasn't cool yet. I don't know which one, but I remember definitely thinking it was cool at the time because I'd never heard of it, and of course this was all pre-pandemic. So yes, I started in August 2019. So my program, doing the math there, took 5 years in total, which felt good for me. And I was able to piece it pretty well. So, but no, prior to starting the program in August 2019, I was working for 3 years at the University of Dayton in Ohio, as I mentioned, in the Office of Education Abroad. So I was working on faculty-led programs, essentially when you work with professors at a university to develop study abroad programs. And really, I always had in mind that I wanted to do a doctoral degree, but I didn't really know how or what that would look like. So it was at that time that I thought, okay, looking for some options, and University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign's online programs spoke to me, and I thought, oh, they have something that's global studies, like global, international. Those were my really keywords on Google. So that was really important to me, that there was going to be something that had a specific concentration that was international or global focused, and not something that was like at my university that had a higher education administration degree, which is fine. But I wanted something specific. If I was going to do it and dedicate a lot of time and money and energy and stress and sleepless nights, I wanted it to be something that felt like something that would keep me engaged. So yeah, so that's what I did. So I was also, not to jump into next questions, but a big draw for me was the fact that it seemed like a program that was designed for people who were working, and who couldn't take off 5 or 6 years of their life to. And so that was really appealing to me because I was full time at the University of Dayton. So yeah, so that's what I was doing before.
Thanks,
Popcorn to
Aaron.
Sean.
All right. So yeah, before I started the program, I was already a social studies teacher in Chicago Public Schools, where I'm at now. But I was new to Chicago. I'd only been in Chicago for a couple of years when I started in the fall of 2021. One of my classmates from the undergrad teaching program at Illinois had reached out and said that she had started the EPAL master's program the prior spring. And she was like, we had talked a couple weeks ago, like, I'm really enjoying this. Like, I think you should try it out. And so I had been interested in getting like more acquainted with how to teach like culturally responsive teaching in my classroom. And the diversity and equity concentration kind of spoke to me because I wanted to get into more leadership roles at my school. And so I looked into it, pursued it. So I was able to make all of this stuff, yeah, work for my schedule, which was incredible. And since, the last 6 months, really, since I finished the program, I've been able to, implement a lot of the things I learned, as now I'm like a curriculum lead at the school, and like redesigning some of our curriculum to make it more diverse, and to make it like speak to more of our population at the school. We have like a wide variety of students from all backgrounds. And so it's been great to kind of apply what I learned in the program to impacting the curriculum that our students are accessing every day.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you both. And I've gotten some questions in the chat, so we will have things for Q&A too. So feel free to send those questions either directly to me, as a couple of you have done, or you can post them in the chat, and we'll be able to get to them. So next question I have for both of our panelists is, why did you select the program? What made you choose University of Illinois?
So I would say, first and foremost, I just loved my undergrad experience. And I knew that a lot of my coworkers were also Illinois grads, and I knew that it was a well-respected institution just from the name. And then the former classmate of mine just really raved about all of the professors that she had to that point in her progress through the master's program. And so I started looking into the professors and the research that the professors were doing that for whose classes I could take if I were to get into this program. And so that's what really sold it to me was the quality of the professors, the research that they were doing, the papers that they had published. And so I checked out a couple of other grad school programs, some that were a little more local, but with the flexibility of doing this online and being able to teach full time while I was doing the program, that just coupled with the quality of the instruction, I just knew I was going to be in perfect hands. And once I got into it too, the flexibility was just incredible. Being able to continue teaching and do the classes, one 8-week class kind of at a time. So I could still do 2 classes per semester, and I was able to finish in right around 2 calendar years, which was kind of the timeline that I had set out for myself.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's fun because I feel like Sean said some of the things I think so that I think as well and were part of my decision making, which is neat. So kind of in the flexibility category of things, yes, for me, being able to take 2 classes per semester was one of the factors that I liked when I was looking at the program, and the fact that you didn't have to take them at once, like that whole thing in psychology where when you have to switch activities, there's like that lag time or kind of switching inefficiencies. I was like, okay, I feel like being able to do like 8-week blocks is going to still be like keeping me on track. So I'm not doing this for 20 years. And at the same time, being not overwhelming because I didn't want to be overwhelmed. So it's just not a fun emotion. And so that was really fabulous. And then also the synchronous sessions were really big for me. Like I'm just a person that needs something on the calendar to stay accountable. And so the idea of like an asynchronous experience where you're only ever like writing logs on like LMS systems was just not appealing to me. So the idea that there was a synchronous time where people were talking on, in their little boxes, 6 o'clock on Tuesdays or 4, I don't know, 5 o'clock on Thursday, something like that, was really appealing to me, and it made it feel kind of real, and it felt like it counterbalanced a bit of like the online aspect to it because I'm a decently social person, so I felt like that was really a big draw for me. Also, the price was right. It felt like I had done a visit at Loyola of Chicago, like the 6 months before, and I was like, yikes, like I'm not sure the ROI on an education graduate degree is going to be quite worth paying that back when I did the math. So that was really great. At the time, it was like 400 plus a credit hour or something. I don't know if that shifted now, but also just the idea of an online education was really helpful to me from like a mobility factor standpoint. So working at a university, I could have gone to a program that was right on campus, would have been free, super free. But I didn't want to be tethered to one place if my life shifted and then never be able to finish the degree. So that mobility factor was huge, that I could be anywhere in the world taking my classes and doing synchronous sessions, et cetera. Which, in fact, in 2022, I actually got a Fulbright post some COVID delays and was able to continue my education from Argentina. And so that was really neat. And that flexibility was just tremendous. And then I think I already mentioned the piece about being able to concentrate specifically on what I was interested in. And there's all these different concentrations that hopefully you all have seen online. They're really nice, and you get to tailor what you're studying. Finally. I also, similar to what Sean said about the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign's reputation, for me, that was big. The idea of going to a Big Ten school, like R1 research institution. And to be super honest with you, and again, we're thinking 2019 mentality, the idea of an online program at the time, and maybe even now for some people, I had some reticence about it, like, oh gosh, like, are people gonna what are they gonna think? And again, 2019 mentality. So the idea of going to University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign to me was like really reassuring, I guess, because it felt like, okay, this is a really good brand and reputation and place that people know a lot about. So that really drew me in as well. So a lot of different reasons why I selected this program in the University of Illinois. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, and thanks, Sean, also for the great input. And then last question before we get to some student or questions from the audience here is what advice, you know, it might be hard, but what advice would you give to other students or somebody who's interested in the program that you graduated from?
Yeah, so I can start on this one. So number one, I would say talk in your synchronous classes. Be active, get on the mic. If you don't like getting on the mic, be really active in the chat because this is it. Like this is the interface. This is how you're going to interact with students and your faculty members. So number one, by talking in class, you create the community you want to be a part of. If you want to make the experience something, you're going to help contribute to that by making it an active interface when you're having those live synchronous sessions. And I really do think, I think that what is a little bit cliche, but like what is it? What you put into it, you get out of it. I know it's a little cliche, but I think it's super, super true, especially in a program like this where you can kind of fly by and have it not be super meaningful, or you can really invest yourself. And so I think that's helpful, and to kind of keep yourself engaged in that way. And also I think it gets you talking in class, like a lot of visibility from your professor. So I feel like professors remembered me because it was like, oh yeah, Erin, the one who won't stop talking in class. Or maybe they thought other things, but so people are going to remember you. So I think that's helpful. So that would be my first piece of advice. I would also recommend setting up meetings or requesting meetings with faculty or advisors whenever you can. Or Brianna, the advisor on the call, can probably attest to all my semesterly appointments that I was like, I'm just going to make an appointment so I can have some FaceTime with Illinois staff. And so for me, that was really valuable, just to create community in a way that an online environment allows you to do. It's different. It's different how you have to do it. And you often have to be intentional. You're not just going to run into people in the hallway because you're not in the hallway physically on campus necessarily. And then third thing, speaking of campus, I would encourage, if you could ever go to campus, do so. Tori and Brianna both know I really like coming to campus. I have been closer to campus living in Ohio and Indiana, but every year, the first Friday in March, there's a graduate conference open, I believe, to master's and doctoral students. So I came and it was really fun, and it made me feel like part of the campus and the community, and I could envision, I don't know, the built environment of, the community that I was a part of. And that was really meaningful to me. I even went on a couple independent visits and just said, I'm going over for the day and going to meet with some people and set up meetings. And I met my advisor in person the first semester. We went to lunch, and it was, she bought me lunch even. So that was really neat. And I think final point, and then I'll concede the mic here to Sean, like trying to make your community small, like as best you can, connecting with classmates on WhatsApp or iMessage too, and audio messaging, talking about your courses. I have two very good friends that I made out of the program. One of them, I kid you not, I have literally never met in person still, but we audio message about every week, and we're good friends now. So I would really encourage, like, build that community. And again, it looks very different when you're in an online space, but also, humans are humans. So it's really just what effort you put into it. So those are a couple pieces of my advice. Talk in class, come to campus, and really just make an effort with people who you're in class with.
Thanks, Aaron.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. To kind of piggyback off of a few of the things that Aaron said, I really, want to emphasize the talk aspect of the doing an online program. It really makes it more worthwhile, and you get to know the instructors better, but you get to build a community, like Aaron was saying, with the people that are in the class. And I took 8 classes over the course of my master's, and I would say that in all 8, I knew overlap, 10 to 12 students per class. And so it was nice to see a familiar face and someone that you're in a breakout room with for 20 minutes. If you've already kind of talked before, then it becomes a little easier to share again, and you get to feel like you're part of a community and a classroom of sorts, even though you're not necessarily, physically in a classroom. It just helps kind of push the boundaries of kind of what you're thinking about a topic too. Like there's so many incredible people that are in all of these programs that I didn't even really anticipate getting into it. I was just like, I'm going to go get my master's and, move a lane and get my pay bump from my school district or whatever. And I wanted to gain a lot from it. But I also just met like incredible people that were taking classes at 3 a.m. in Beijing while, I'm sitting in my dining room table at, 6 eating some pizza, like it was just crazy the different types of people that you got to meet and people from all walks of life and the incredible careers that people were pursuing. And I know a lot of people or saw a lot of screens of people that you get it put into a group and that they don't ever speak. The mic doesn't come on, the camera doesn't come on, they don't ever say anything. And I just if you're going to do it, you might as well go all in. So piggyback off of what you were saying, and then I'd say the other thing that's piece of advice I would push would just the flexibility in course options is incredible. For the master's program, there was I think just one specific like class that you had to take, and the others were like groups of requirements, and you could choose from those groups. And then there's a ton of flexibility um, in the elective options that you had as well. And so it was great just kind of sitting with the course catalog and like plugging in like, okay, here's how I meet all my requirements. And then I want to meet all my interests. Like I'm interested in diversity and equity and inclusion and all these big ideas, but how do I pick out the classes that like work best? And so I reached out to a couple of professors and, hey, like what does this course really entail? Like from this brief description, I had a couple questions and getting that feedback from them was great. So that like when I got into the class, I kind of knew what I was getting into and I was specifically tailoring my experience to what I wanted to get out of the program. And, I was really interested in, how the concept of like school choice impacts students and impacts communities, especially in Chicago. And, part of if you're familiar at all with the selective enrollment system in CPS, and how that school choice model works and learning the history of all of that. And I wouldn't have been able to learn as much and pursue that as much had I not reached out to a couple of professors to find, to ask about what their courses entailed, and was able to get enrolled in those classes. So definitely tailoring your experience to what you want, and that'll help you get the most out of it too.
Thank you. And thanks again to everyone getting their questions in. So I have some questions from the chat. Also, just want to let everyone know if you think of anything afterwards, or maybe you're watching this recording back and you didn't get a chance to answer your question live, you can always email us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu. Someone on staff will be happy to help answer your questions. If you have something specific, we should be able to help answer that for you and get you some input. We also, this recording, plenty of other alumni panel recordings too, if you would like to hear what other alumni have had to say about some of these same questions. With that said, feel free to keep submitting questions, and I am now going to start asking some of the questions that we've received. So one of the first questions I got here was, so there's the estimated hours per week that's out there for folks, and that is we have in our information sessions and things like that. But I'll let each of you give your input on how much time per day, week, something like that, would you recommend that folks have available in order to be successful in their courses? Sean, since you just went, I'll give Aaron a chance to go here.
Okay. Yeah. So I feel like the way I would answer that question is the more like my mentality of it. Like I envisioned my participation in the program and enrollment, I guess, like a part-time job on top of my full-time job. So I thought of it, I guess in my mind, maybe like 10-ish hours a week. So I would have the synchronous session, which I think most of them are 2 hours. So there was that. And then I usually had maybe like 1 week, 1 day of the weekend that was like my school day, where I was going to sort of focus on, okay, let's get the readings done. Was I supposed to put something in the what is it called? Canvas, LMS system, like get the assignment done, submit that. So I feel like by the time I had the class and then had the weekend day and then probably some like last minute stuff right before the class, 8 to 10 maybe a week. But again, I kind of envisioned it like I said, sort of a part-time job that you have on like the side of your full-time job, which I'm talking to an education crowd here, so I'm sure many of you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's how I envision it. It really did to me feel manageable having only one class like every 8 weeks. So like again, like I said at the beginning, that was really big for me. And so I feel like having just the one, I could focus and not feel this like hecticness around having to like know two different subject areas completely, two different like messages from the professors and things going on. So to me, that was really the crucial factor of why it was manageable.
Thank you,
I would say
Erin.
that. Yeah, sorry. I would say I had like a similar experience. Yeah, like somewhere around like 7 to 10 hours, depending on the week. The 2 hour synchronous session, and then somewhere, yeah, 4 to 6 hours of like reading and like a Canvas assignment. And I know in my program, especially the classes that were a little more geared towards history, there was usually a couple of longer readings about some aspect of like education, institutions, or the history of certain concepts around in and around education. And so, a few hours a week of reading, and then yeah, like a post or something in Canvas and discussion, and then weeks where there was a project or a paper due, then a few more hours. But like Aaron said too, yeah, it kind of felt like a part-time job that, and that's kind of my expectation going into it, was that I'd need to commit a few nights or like a Sunday afternoon, just to set other things aside, and know for like 3 hours or so, like I'm just going to work on this one thing. um and balancing that was tough once in a while, but I went in with that expectation, and I definitely didn't feel like I was ever overwhelmed by what I was doing.
Thank you both for your thoughts and input on that. One of the other questions next up that I got here is, so Aaron, you had touched on it briefly with the graduate student conference. So question that we had gotten here was, are you participating in any conference, seminars, network opportunities, research funding, etc.? What do you want to maybe expand a little bit more on the graduate student conference or anything else that you did? And then Sean, is there anything that you took advantage of during your studies also?
Sure. So I can start. Yes, I feel like I'm the unofficial spokeswoman for the graduate conference. I'm just going to give myself that title, Tori. But yeah, so that happens, like I mentioned before, I believe it's the first Friday of every March, consistently. So you can always mark it on your calendar. So yeah, I went to that every single year, which was again kind of just a little historical marker now. Was I think the one of the last things I did before the COVID shutdowns in March 2020. So I'll kind of always remember that. But yes, I attended every year, or I attended the first year, and then every other year I ended up presenting my research. And the way the conference at Illinois, it's in the College of Education on campus on a Friday. I think it's like usually the Friday before spring break or something, so it's kind of like calm on the campus. And it's was framed to me as kind of a low stakes environment where you could present your research that was in progress. And so for doctoral students, you're always trying to think, okay, what am I going to do my dissertation on? So it was a really cool space. You can even, there were students who would present like a literature review that they'd done for a course. And so it's just a good opportunity to have to talk about your research, because it's one thing to be all in your head and typing and, a little bit isolated. But then we have to articulate it to an audience, and there's a little bit more like at stake. It's really good practice. So there was that. Also during COVID, there was a virtual conference that my advisor invited me to participate in, that was with a university in Japan. And so again, relationship with the professor, built that relationship. She thought of me. She said submit something, so I did it. And then I also, in the case of my dissertation, I applied for several dissertation travel grants to the college. I didn't end up getting any of them, but I did apply for something through University of Illinois Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies and got some funding to ultimately do my dissertation field work in Argentina in June 2023. And so that was a pretty cool thing that I thought, oh, this is such a great opportunity, because it was, it's not free to get to the other side of the world. So that was my experience with some of the offerings at Illinois. With when it comes to research and having those opportunities. And I think it kind of depends on your concentration. There might be like other sub conferences or like topics that are specific to human resource development or learning technologies, et cetera.
Thanks, Aaron. Sean, do you have anything else to add?
I would say I haven't done too many like conferences connected to the program and in specifics, but I met quite a few teachers through the program that were also social studies teachers, history teachers, and so I've stayed in contact with a few, which has been great. Just sharing resources. Hey, like if we teach the same thing, how did you cover this topic, or did you? And so set up a couple of like shared Google Drive folders with teachers that I met through the program. That some don't even teach in Chicago or the state of Illinois, but was able to form a relationship and just kind of network that way and sharing resources with each other, which has been great. If any of you guys are classroom teachers, I'm sure you're well aware of, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, just sharing awesome resources from all these awesome teachers that are, spread out across the country that get brought together in a program like this.
Thank you for that also. And I have answered some questions in the chat, mostly just to make sure that they get answered. There was a little bit of overlap, but just want to make sure that they got answered. Gonna move into the second portion of 2 questions, just to make sure that we get to those, about what you both are currently doing, and then open it up for some more questions for people to ask about that. And then we can continue with more questions as long as time allows. So with that, we'll go to Sean to start off this time. So moving into a little bit about what you're doing now. So I know you did a brief introduction, but people may have forgotten what that was that you were doing, since that was almost a half hour ago now. So what is it that you are doing now? And could you share a little bit more about what you're doing currently in your career?
Yeah. So I am a high school social studies teacher in Chicago Public Schools. I, in the last year or so, have become the curriculum lead teacher for our AP Human Geography curriculum team and our AP Comparative Government and Politics curriculum team. And so I kind of used some of the things I learned from the program and some of the kind of just, I guess, confidence from graduating from the program and learning what I did about leadership to like propose adding new classes to our department. We're a huge school and a huge department, but I'd noticed that like a lot of the classes we were offering are very like Eurocentric or kind of Western civilization centric. And so our school really has a lot of like AP focus, for better or for worse, but we I submitted a couple of proposals that we should adopt the AP African American Studies course and then also the AP Comparative Government and Politics course, because the comparative politics course is government, like studying governments that aren't necessarily Western focused. So it's like a focus on Russia, China, Iran, Nigeria, Mexico, and Great Britain being kind of the one Western, nation there. And this is the first year teaching the course. And it's been great. It's been super rewarding having it in the building. The kids were like immediately interested. And my kind of justification to the school on adding both of those courses was that we really need to meet the kids where they are, like that we have such a wide variety of students that we need to expand our course offerings. And the moment we did, we just saw like a flood of students wanting to take these new courses that weren't just like AP European History, AP US Government, AP US History, which are fantastic courses. And, I teach US History as well. But it just like, um, once we saw like so many students being interested and involved, we've kind of taken that, and I'm on our instructional leadership team for the building as well. And so we're adding, a dual enrollment Latin American history class, dual enrollment Middle Eastern history classes. And so we're like expanding more and more to just, find student interest and allow them to pursue those interests within our building. And I think it's been really rewarding in the last year, how rapidly this has grown.
Was muted there. I would say that sounds really exciting, and thanks for sharing.
All right. Yeah. So on my side, in terms of what I'm doing in my career, funny enough, this is not an answer you'd expect. I have some overlap with Sean, but I do. So I'll share that. So as I mentioned before, I am working currently as the assistant director for international admissions and recruitment at the Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. I am in week 12, so I've survived that long being a newbie. As I mentioned before, I worked in education abroad at another university. So I got this job after having taken, what was that, like, I mean, 8 or 9 month sort of break from full-time employment while I was finishing my dissertation this past year. So it just kind of got to a point where I was like, all right, I got to get this done and we got to make a change. So that's what I did and got that, done and graduated. So that was sort of the impetus for shifting to, like I said, sort of the quote unquote other side of the house within international education at a university. So I'm doing that, international recruitment of international students. Somehow my employer thought I was well versed enough in what I was doing that they sent me to Singapore and Thailand last month to start doing the recruitment, which I was thinking, are you sure I know enough? But okay. It was funny. I actually met the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign recruiter there. We were neighbors at our many international fairs at the international schools, so that was fun. And so that is what I'm doing, kind of 9 to 5. And then I am an adjunct faculty member in a world geography course, actually, at another university. So I actually did that before I graduated, so it's not really new per se. But what is new and exciting is that they get to call me Dr. Gayheimer. So that's sort of a cool thing, perk of the degree, of course, is having the title. And I think the third thing I would say is I'm trying to find the motivation to get an article published out of my dissertation. When you do not have the structure anymore of having a hard deadline, it is a little harder to motivate yourself and get back into that mode. So I am working hopefully on being able to put together a publication out of my dissertation because, as I keep telling myself, I've already done the work. I just got to take 260 pages and make it like 20. No big deal. So that's sort of the next thing. And yeah, I think just in general, I guess maybe helpful commentary for anyone who's considering like a doctoral program is I'm sort of in a practitioner role right now, which I think you'll find a lot of folks in the EDD program are that sort of scholar-practitioner identity that EDDs have if you were to do the online program. And so I enjoy being a practitioner, like a staff member at a university, but I really like this sort of dash, or like I say sometimes, like a side dish of teaching and a side dish of research. So just trying to navigate kind of post-graduation, where to put my energies, because I like lots of different things. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing right now is I'm going to turn on the light. So I might turn off my camera just for a second. It's getting kind of dark here in Indiana. So that is my answer.
No problem. Thanks, Erin. Okay, so next question that I have for you, Sean, while Erin's adjusting her lights, is what advice would you give to any current students or future students that are wanting to get into your career field? What's something that of input that you could provide for them?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, if you're looking to get into teaching, thank you. But I would say that kind of finding what your interests are, and where they align with students' interests and kind of students' lives, really helps to make the like learning more impactful for them. But I've found that like the more passionate I am about the topics that I'm teaching, it's like so much easier to kind of put like your all into it. And, you know, I think as I moved through this program, I was able to meet a lot of awesome teachers and instructors and learn a lot about things I was interested in. But um, more than anything, just talking to more people and talking to my students and figuring out like what is it that they are interested in their lives, and how can I make what I'm teaching them relevant to their day-to-day life. And when students can kind of make that connection, then it just becomes so much more meaningful, and they're so much more engaged and willing to have discussions and talk in front of the class or talk to each other. And it's easier to teach these like critical thinking skills and get them to read more difficult texts, the more engaged and the more that they see that what they're learning is directly applicable to their lives. And to the geography class that I'm able to teach, that kind of the curriculum for that just kind of naturally helps us talk about the city. But I've only lived in Chicago for 5 or 6 years now, but teaching this AP Human Geography class, I have just like fully dived into like the history of all the neighborhoods of Chicago, and try to build into all of my units space for students to like investigate their neighborhood or find another neighborhood in a different part of the city, to learn more about whether it's the migration history or like the religious structures that are there, the cultural landscape that's there, and how migration has changed, what that looks like over time. And just the students, like their eyes are like saucers when they start putting all the pieces together, of how the world that they're walking around in every single day kind of came to be. And I found that it's engaging and it's really empowering for them as well. So I'd say that's the biggest piece of advice I could give.
Thank you. Erin?
Yeah. So first off, Sean, I think I definitely want to take your class. I'm always a big fan of urban sociology. That was my undergrad, and I think Chicago is just a fascinating place in terms of like segregation and all these different groups and the changing neighborhoods. We could geek out about that together, I'm sure. Okay, so but in terms of my advice to current students, so I don't understand, and thinking particularly about working in higher education or international education, whatever that looks like, and in the context of thinking about doing this degree or continuing with the degree. Here's my advice. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but maybe I'll say it in a friendly voice and it won't sound sad. But I would say, so first, definitely focus on your education, sure, but I would always keep in mind complementing it with practical experience, for sure, and keeping that balance always in mind. I wouldn't also like again, depending on if you're thinking about a master's or a doctoral degree, particularly in the doctoral degree context, because that's kind of where I'm speaking from. Not fooling yourself that because you earn it, you're just going to waltz into jobs and everyone's going to think, oh, you have a doctoral degree, like you're automatically going to be leaps and bounds above everyone else automatically. First off, in higher education, everyone's trying to save money. And so if they say, we didn't ask you to have that degree, yeah, you have it. But so it may give you leverage, it might, but it might not. So just being kind of realistic with yourself about that. And always being, while you're in a program, thinking about the aptitudes, skills. I know it kind of is kind of commercializing it. We could have a whole conversation about that, but it's just the reality of the situation. So really thinking about what you can talk about that you did in your program and conveying that value to someone outside of it in a work context, I think is key. Because I think a lot of people, if they haven't had a doctoral degree experience or even master's degree experience, they might not really get how it's adding value. So always thinking about how it has added value, but making sure you take that on and own the fact that you have to be sort of the messenger of that value. And make the case for yourself. I also think in that spirit, being super honest with yourself about why you're pursuing a degree, I think that's just a good headspace to think, to be in and to make yourself get in before you do the program. And as you continue, because I can tell you, for my world geography class adjunct role, which, adjuncts don't get paid anything anyway, but I think like in total, it's like $400 extra now that I have like a degree that's one more than I had before. So and that's a very particular case, it's anecdotal. But you kind of have to think to yourself, like, am I doing this for career advancement or am I doing it for personal fulfillment? Am I doing it for some combination of the two? But just being honest with yourself. Like for me, it wasn't really necessarily about career advancement or more money. I mean, that's great. I'm not going to deny that. But I wanted to do it for me. Like I wanted to be able to walk around with a title and feel that pride. I have a terminal degree. Heck yeah. And so that was big for me. And so also and not to, to leave on sort of a little higher note, knowing sometimes with a degree, and I don't know how Sean feels about this, how this would be the case in secondary education, but knowing that you have your degree now in 2024, you're in 2023, and knowing that maybe you're not going to see the immediate sort of like reap the benefits from it immediately. Like for example, when I was doing a job search, maybe that's not going to, make a whole lot of difference in this first job, but it's going to totally position me for that next step up when there's like a director position or something. And that role requires a doctoral degree. You've got it. You're in the way, what's that phrase? You're in the wings waiting, whatever that is. And so I think he's not always thinking this is going to, I'm going to graduate. It's going to immediately translate to something. It might in some contexts, but like in my case, may not be immediate, but it's going to position you to be in places to do things that otherwise you wouldn't be without the degree. Final example, and then I'll pause. This summer, someone approached me about doing some contract work for their higher education institution, and the reason they could approach me was like, are you ABD at least, or do you have your doctoral degree? Like, okay, good, we can bring you on for this contract. I don't know how much the doctoral degree mattered or not in terms of the nature of the work, but because I had the credential, I was then in a position to be able to fulfill the work, to at least kind of check that box on paper. So, so that would be my advice. And again, I hope it doesn't sound Debbie Downerish, but like, I think just always keeping in mind, yes, this education is awesome. Also complementing it with practical experiences, whether that's internships, career opportunities, networking, whatever. And then being able to convey that as well. And just knowing that maybe it's not going to get you that immediate sort of advancement role, but like that there's that much more potential as you go to be in spaces where you can leverage the degree to your advantage.
Thanks, Erin. It's always good to be thinking ahead and what are your intentions and what are your planning purposes and what does your degree mean to you? And it can mean a lot of different things for a lot of people. And you hear that a lot of times with students when they're coming in for career sessions or talking about what their career plans are and things like that. So hear that all over the place all the time. Kind of building off of that, and while folks are maybe thinking of any other questions, also there's 12 minutes left just to give people a little bit of heads up on time. Again, if you have questions that don't get answered, you can reach us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu. We're happy to answer those. One question here that's a little bit of a bridge from first half and this half is how did you deal with work-life balance? And then I'm tossing in this other part of the question for both of you. When you were taking classes, did you look at classes in any way in order to things that you could apply directly with what you're doing in class with what you were doing currently in your career? So start with Sean this time.
Yeah, I would say that work-life balance was a little bit of a challenge at first. I started like, fall 2021, and we were, fully back in school post-pandemic, or not, in the middle of the pandemic still, but we were like in person again. And I think at first I just kind of threw myself like headlong into everything. And that I also coach girls soccer at the school that I teach at. And so that's a spring sports in Illinois. And I was like, I'm going to do 2 classes in the fall, 2 in the spring, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring, done. And I did my 2 in the fall, and they went great. I had to, learn how to manage my time again. And undergrad had been a while at that point. And then I got to the spring and I was like, I can do this, with coaching. And I took 1 class the first 8 weeks of the spring term, and it overlapped with the beginning of season with coaching for about 3 weeks. And I had to cancel my second term class for the spring term. It was too much. Those 3 weeks were too overwhelming, and just trying to coach and be present for that and those kids in the program, while at the same time giving my all to this and grading and lesson planning. And so just kind of finding what my limit was. And what's great about this program is that I was able to be that flexible. And so I just shifted a class to the summer, instead of doing it that second spring term. And then the following spring, I just didn't take any classes. And that way I was not like burning myself out, while still being able to pursue and finish my degree within about 2 years. I just kind of shifted it to fall and summer, and realized that spring just wasn't the best time for me to kind of maintain my mental health and physical health.
Very important things to always keep in mind.
Yeah, so I think going off, yeah, for the work-life balance question, sometimes the key thing is knowing what your own kind of work cycle is. Like, when is your busy season? When is not your busy season? How does it impact the classes that you choose to take and manage things? I think that's a big piece. I also took, I think, 2 or 3 summer, maybe every summer, a summer class. And so that was nice to kind of redistribute the load a little bit. I think I still took one class every term, fall and spring, but I don't know, it somehow helped me. I don't know, at the time it made sense. And so that was really nice because now it was a little harder though, because there were 6 weeks instead of 8. So it was quite condensed and it moved very quickly. But I remember that was helpful for me. It was also, again, during COVID. So it was like, what else am I going to do? And so that was really nice. Actually gave me a sense of purpose, which was really good. Kind of indirectly answering this work-life balance question, I do feel like, again, these synchronous class meetings were very helpful for me because it created like this like kind of loop of a week in my head. Like, okay, we just had class on Tuesday, now everything's due the next Tuesday. So it helped me pace, and so that I could say, hey, yeah, on Wednesday night I am going to go out with my friends. But then, Thursday I have this other commitment and I really got to buckle down. Like, so it was really helpful for me to kind of have that structure in place. And then it just, I guess, helped with the work-life balance piece a little bit more, and being able to like control and structure my time. Again, also, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but part of the reason I chose to do the program when I did, again, only 3 years into my career, and I knew it was something that I wanted to do. I had this sense at whatever age I was, 25, 26, 27, 28, that I was like, okay, life may only get more hectic from here. So like, let's just get going and do this. So that was helpful. And I do know folks in the program, many, who have partners, kids, like doing all sorts of things. And I always think, oh my gosh, how are you doing? They really did. And so that was really admirable. And then second piece on the career in terms of direct application, my answer is kind of focused on the doctoral experience. We also had electives to take. I never had any trouble, as Sean was referencing before, finding classes that worked for my schedule or that were interesting or they didn't get filled up. So that was awesome. I did ask my advisor though, like, oh, this is so exciting. Should I just take any class, that sounds interesting, just to have this opportunity to learn? And she was like, maybe don't do that, because if you want to once or twice, you can, but really try to keep focusing on what that ultimate dissertation is going to be about. Like, this is a very much like I think maybe a difference between a master's program and a doctoral program. Actually, not maybe, I think it is that like you're very oriented towards that dissertation at the end. There is a very clear goal of getting that done. And so every paper I would do in class, I was trying to further hone what my topic for my dissertation was going to be. And so because I work in international education, naturally, both what I was interested in and what I was doing in my 9-to-5 job, that was all kind of converging and was a really nice thing. And again, going back to what I was saying about the career sort of value piece of things, once you've done 3, 4, 5 papers on a similar-ish body of scholarship or work, you know a lot about it. And that's something you can take back to your day-to-day work at your job.
Thanks, Erin. So I know we're getting close on time, so if time, gonna try and sneak in one last question for you both here. If we did not get your question asked, please email us and we're happy to answer that for you. Also, I launched a quick poll to get feedback from everybody who attended tonight. So last question I have for both of you is how did you go about selecting your advisor? Did you work with your advisor in your program? Might be different from doctoral to master's. I'll let you go first, Sean, since advising is a little bit more in-depth at the doctoral level, and give Aaron some time then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll keep it short. I just kind of reached out to my advisor when I um, first started the program and was just like, hey, I think I'm interested in pursuing this diversity and equity concentration. Do you have like suggestions on, certain courses or certain instructors on, a direction that I can take this, because it felt, kind of broad still. And they were incredibly responsive. And I know it's, far more of a relationship building thing in the doctoral realm of things, but I can just speak to my advisor was so helpful. Like, just if I sent an email with a question, at one point I used an outdated like one of the degree audit programs somewhere online in the self-service, and went into a panic that I wasn't going to graduate because I wasn't meeting requirements or something. And they got back to me in like half an hour, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're fine. Like, you're going to finish. You took the right classes. That thing was just outdated. So they just were incredibly responsive with any type of question that I had.
Thanks, Sean. Aaron.
Yes. So as Tori referenced, the doctoral experience with advisor, the whole advisor experience is a big part of doing a doctoral degree. And I should clarify, so advisor. So typically in a scenario in a doctoral program, you're going to have a faculty advisor who's really your person that you're working with on the nature of the research, thinking about citations and arguments and getting deadlines done for chapters of your dissertation or course selection that's going to get you to that ultimate milestone. So that would be your faculty advisor. And then, but an academic advisor is the person who's going to help you with the endless forms and your deadlines that are logistical, which are super, super important too. And also kind of what credits are going to count for different things. The advisors don't always have that insight. So it's great to have that balance of both the academic advisor like Brianna, but then your faculty advisor. I'm not mixing the terms there, but one is a faculty member, one is a staff member. And they've played really different but important functions. I did not know my advisor before I came on campus. In my essay for admission, I mentioned 3 different faculty members' names of people who I'd seen on the website that I was like, his research looks interesting, hers looks interesting, hers also looks interesting. Because I just expressed I didn't really know what I wanted to do quite yet, and that didn't seem to be an impediment to being accepted. And then I don't know if it's encouraged, to the person's Lauren's question in the chat. I don't know if it's probably ideal. Maybe in an ideal world, you'd know that individual beforehand. But I don't think it's necessary. I switched actually my advisor even when I was going a different route with my research when I was in my first year. And yes, I think that's all I had to say. But yeah, that relationship advisor is key. And sometimes, that advisor has lots of students they're working with. And so it's very much, they may keep you accountable to an extent, but you are really keeping yourself accountable in a doctoral program. And that's sort of the beauty of the accomplishment at the end, that you're like, I did that. Yes. So yeah, that would be my kind of, experience with advisors and the value of advising.
Thank you. And thank you both again for joining us tonight. I'm sure we could go on hours with questions and hearing about your experiences and feedback. So really appreciate your time this evening. And thank you everybody who joined us and asked wonderful questions in the chat. Really appreciate your interest in the programs and coming and taking advantage of the wonderful knowledge from our alums that we are so happy to have opportunities like this to celebrate and give them an opportunity to share what they're currently doing and what they've done. So with that said, I hope everybody has a great day. The session was recorded. It should get emailed out to you about 12 hours afterwards. If for some reason you don't get it, you can email us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu. Also, if you have any questions that didn't get asked, you can go ahead and email us there also, and we will get those answered. With that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, no matter where you're at and no matter the time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.